It's episode 8 of The Last of Us, and we finally get an action-oriented episode. Let's talk about The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 8. Hey everyone, this is David Stark from Watch Your Past, and I'm here to talk to you about The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 8, When We Are in Need, which premiered on HBO Max on March 5th, 2023. This is the 8th episode. I believe there are only 9 episodes in this arc, so we're getting towards the end, and wow, what an episode it is. My hot take is, look, I think you should watch it. I love that it was finally an action-oriented episode. There was a lot more violence, a lot more kind of brutality, and I also love the new characters and the overall predicament that we find Joel and Ellie in. So, I'm gonna tell you a little more about the episode. A few things I liked, one thing I didn't like, and in that I will probably talk about the ending. I kind of have to talk about the thing I didn't like. So there will be spoilers in that portion. I will try to keep it, spoiler free up until the things I didn't like. So you can watch it. Until then, I will keep it vague. But when I get to the things I didn't like, there will be spoilers. Man, you know what? You should just watch this series anyways. If you haven't seen The Last of Us yet, hurry up. You can catch up on the season before episode 9, which I think is the final episode. So get on it now, get up to speed, because this is definitely a series you should stay up to date on. So in The Last of Us Season 1, Episode 8, you have Ellie kind of taking more of a central role in this episode. Joel was hurt at the end of episode 6. Episode 7 was kind of a flashback story building episode for Ellie, where she kind of grew into her own. And now she has really grown into her own. She is taking care of business. She is taking care of Joel and trying to survive. And she is really finally the lead character. She's grown into her own independent leader, and that's important because Joel is essentially in a coma. He's awake occasionally, but he doesn't move much. He is sick. His wound appears to be infected, and Ellie is trying to take care of him, keeping them alive, and also just survive in this harsh world. But in this climate, she runs into a couple of hunters who are part of a larger community that seems to have good intentions, but as with everything in this world, those intentions may be mixed. So, things I liked about this episode. The first, look, this is more of an action-oriented episode. I love the action. I love that this is just finally an episode where it feels more similar to parts of the game, where there is just a lot more kind of brutality. There's a lot more combat. Even if it is fairly quick, it feels like more of the sequences of the game come alive here, which, look, I love. I like what the series has done, but look, it's based on the Last of Us game, and if there's an episode that kind of adheres more closely to some of those mechanics, I do like that about it. The second thing I love is David, the new character, David. He is a preacher that is much more complex than you are expecting. I loved his character at the start. I loved how he was steadfast in his beliefs and also had a really good moral character and control of his group. It was really kind of nice to see this person that seemed to be a moral leader in this world, which really doesn't seem to have many of those. The third thing I loved is, look, Troy Baker's in this. And if you don't know who Troy Baker is, Troy Baker was the voice of Joel in the video game. And they brought him in to this episode to play a character, James, who was kind of David's right-hand man. And I just love that. I love the synergy there. I love that they got Troy Baker to come in and play a meaningful role. That is just such a nice little touch and definitely a kind of nod to fans of The Last of Us. And Troy Baker, look, he does a great job. Troy Baker's a good actor. He did a great job as Joel, and he did a good job as James in this episode. So it was really nice to see that come through. And the last thing I really loved is Ellie growing into her own. Ellie really does become more of an independent character here. She is hunting, she is surviving, she is protecting Joel. She really is the kind of main character in this episode by necessity, because Joel is out. He's not available. So Ellie really has to kind of step up, and she does. And it's nice to see her character grow and evolve that way. So things I didn't like, and this is where there will be spoilers. So if you don't want to know what happens in this episode, I would turn it off now. But if you've already seen it, you just want to hear my thoughts. Things I didn't like as much. I didn't like David's kind of I'll call it the last transformation. David's character starts off as this steadfast religious zealot who really comes across as this fair, even-tempered, harsh, because he has to kind of keep control of this settlement, but still driven by morals and driven by a sense of purpose. But as we find out during this episode, David's intentions are a little bit more grotesque and a little bit darker. And eventually in this episode, he essentially tries to proposition Ellie, kind of take her on as a companion at least. He kind of phrases it as like she reminds him of him, and she's like fiercely independent and a leader, and like he wants an equal. But then he essentially like tries to make her his bride. It just seems so out of character from like the David character that we saw at the beginning. I really liked that there was finally like, look, there's finally a moral good person who is a little bit harsh. Like he has to keep control of this flock, this group that he is leading, but he seemed to have good intentions. And then they just kind of like turned it on the head. And then also what I also didn't love is like in that transformation, he becomes much more selfish as you would expect, but that leads to a decision that was really, really bad, I think, because his whole character was built up as like trying to protect these people. Even if he had like other intentions, he still was trying to like make sure his people ate and like survived and at least had the basics. But then during this final fight with Ellie, where Ellie confronts him, they kind of like have a showdown. Ellie sets a fire, but she throws like a burning stick at David to try to hit him. It misses, but it lights a curtain on fire, and that starts this like overall fire in this building. And rather than just put it out at the start, David just ignores it and goes after Ellie. But like I was thinking, look, like there are only so many buildings. They live in a harsh environment. They're in Wyoming. It's like cold and snowy. He should have just put out the fire quickly to preserve this building rather than like pursue Ellie to try to get his vengeance and then let this whole building burn down. Now, look, what did make for a more exciting scene. It did make for like a more interesting scene, but it felt like a very bad decision. And the whole last bit felt kind of out of character for what I was hoping David would be. But that being said, I really did like this episode. This is one of my favorite episodes in a while. So it was nice to see like Joel really kind of show his brutality, because it's come through occasionally, as when it's needed to, but this time when he thinks that Ellie is kidnapped and is in danger, he really becomes more of like an animal, and that was interesting to see as well. So now that this is end of season 8, I'm just going to speculate about episode 9. This is just a pure guess. I don't know anything about the episode. So, but there might be some spoilers if I get it right. So if you don't want to know what happens in episode 9, or at least don't want to know my thoughts about it, I would skip this as well. There's only one episode left. I don't know what happens, but it seems like we are not going to get up through the entire Last of Us part 1. It seems like what is left in the story would be a lot to ask for a single episode. Who knows? Maybe the last episode is a long one. Maybe it's like 2 hours long. Maybe they can cram a lot in. But given what else they have to do, it seems unlikely they'll get through that entire last bit of the game. But who knows? Maybe they will. My prediction is that Joel and Ellie are going to make it to kind of the Fireflies, get there, and then after they get there, Joel is going to find out something that is unsettling, and that will probably be like the end of season 1 would be my guess, not knowing anything about it, but that's just kind of my guess. And then season 2 will start off with like that knowledge now in play and what has to happen to deal with that. So but that is Last of Us season 1 episode 8. Check it out on HBO Max, and thanks so much for watching. If you like this review, please like and subscribe to this channel. It helps me out a lot. Make sure all my new content goes straight to you. Thank you.